Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Padfoot Live Get Training. Week 4, I think this is. As you can tell this morning, it's cold. We're up here at Butter Mountain State School Oval, where we hold the training classes, and it's pretty chilly up here today. So we'll talk a little bit later on as well about what you should be doing at the moment, in the cold weather, just to make sure your dogs are happy and comfortable as well. I heard on the news yesterday that apparently it's meant to be unprecedented cold weather for Queensland at the moment. So apparently 12 degrees below the average for this time of year, or something like that. So it's going to get cold. So rug up everyone. Hope everyone's still sitting in bed watching us from your bedrooms. You know, that's how we like to be watched. Or enjoying some breakfast, some coffee, some tea. My coffee's over there. I'll get it in a minute. Okay, so what we're going to be covering off today is a few things. We're going to talk about how to use markers. So we talked about the concept of markers last week, or the week before. We're going to be talking about how you should be thinking about using markers when you've got multiple dogs. We're going to talk a little bit around snakes and snake behaviour and how to protect your dogs from snakes. As I said, we're going to talk a little bit about cold weather and making sure your dogs are happy and comfortable. In our masterclass section today, we're going to be talking about basically the dog dictating what motivates the dog. And we've just had some t-shirts printed with the perfect quote that encapsulates exactly our philosophy here at Padfoot. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, and then we're going to do Buddy's trick of the week. We've got Buddy here with us again today, as usual. Hey, Bud. And Buddy's trick of the week this week is going to be touch.
A nice, useful one.
Yeah, really, really, really useful trick. It's less of a trick, more of a focus exercise, a behaviour tool you can use in multiple situations. Okay, so we might as well kick off with our first question of the week, which is about the markers for multiple dogs.
Yep, awesome. So, training with multiple dogs. I always recommend to people, before you get out 2 dogs, especially before you go and get out 3 dogs, to start training together, make sure your dogs know the skills that you're going to be working on individually, rock solid. Yep. So, if both dog knows a solid sit, both dog knows a solid drop. If both dogs don't know a solid stand, don't throw that into the mix, that kind of stuff. Make sure that they're not trying to figure out what you're asking. It's more so them then trying to differentiate when it's them being asked to do something and when it's the other dog being asked to do something. There's a few ways you can do this. So, we were just discussing this before. With multiple dogs, you have the option of choosing different markers and different commands, essentially, for different dogs, so that they kind of know that that's just, when you say one word, that's you talking specifically to them. I know a few people that have one dog trained in English, one dog trained in German, for instance. Different stuff like that. So it really, the sky...
If you've got the ability to do that, then it's ideal.
The sky is the limit, really, with what you want to do, but it's just thinking about how is your dog going to hear these things, and how do we get clear to them when we are asking them to do something, and when we're asking them to not follow a command because it's being given to another dog. Personally, with my dogs, what I do is when I train them individually, before I give a command, I'll use the name. So all my dogs are used to Buddy sit, Jimmy sit, Cyrus sit. They know that I'm going to address them with their name before I give them their individual command. It took me a while to get there. My dogs know that when I say their name, I'm not calling them to me, because that's the issue we come across.
And that's the most important thing in that one, in that a lot of us use the dog's name as a substitute for calling them to us. So you just say their name and they come to us and they get a treat.
And your dog's going to get real confused if you have it sitting there and you go, Buddy, drop, and he comes in because you've said his name, but then he's like, oh, now you told me to drop and I'm not in the right place.
Exactly. So it's all about getting your own shit together, as we often say.
100%.
Yeah, making sure that if you're going to do it in that way, and it's a great way of actually separating out the different commands, but you need to make sure you're really, really strict with yourself about never using the name to do anything other than get that dog's focus.
Yes.
It never means a recall, it never means any other behaviour apart from, look at me, I'm about to tell you to do something.
Yeah. So honestly, with Buddy, I've almost trained him. So the way that we ask people to do look, essentially when I say his name, that's his cue to give me eye contact. Not to do anything else, same position, but look at me. So that's something that we can definitely work on in classes, something that in training club, that would
Yep.
probably be a great opportunity to do something like that if you
Yep.
want some guidance. But yeah, it's just really, like James said, getting our shit together, figuring out exactly how you want to do it, and really having it thoroughly planned out and thought through before you start implementing
Exactly. It comes down very much to what sort of dog trainer you are. You know, if you are a very highly professional dog trainer, such as we are, you know, then we could have a list of different commands for different dogs that we have built in, and those commands could be verbal, they could be gestural, they could be audible with whistles or whatever.
Yep.
You know, so in the gun dog training world, often if you're working two different dogs simultaneously, and you want one to go left, one to go right, for example, you know, if they're flushing or if they're looking for a bird that has been shot or whatever, you would actually have them trained to different pitch whistles.
Yep.
Yeah, things like that. But then you're remembering, okay, it's that whistle
That's
for
this
that dog,
dog,
that
that's
one for
this
that
dog.
dog. You know, there's a lot that you've got to get your own act together with to make sure you're not actually confusing them, with that.
Yeah.
So
Because you can very easily, if you kind of don't get that set out straight and you have your two dogs in front of you, you can very easily ruin behaviours that they know.
Absolutely.
If you go, so I have Jimmy and Buddy sitting in front of me and they don't know any of this stuff and I've just kind of jumped into it, and I tell Jimmy to drop, but then Buddy drops and then I tell him off for it because he should have stayed in the sit because I didn't tell him to drop.
Yeah.
Well, Buddy's going to get super confused, and then eventually it's going to get to the point where I'm going to ask him to drop, and he's going to be like,
hesitant.
well...
Yeah, he'll be hesitant.
Yeah.
And with your dogs and your behaviours, that's the last thing you want. You don't want them to
No.
be hesitant.
We want them to be really clear and enjoy the activity.
So look, I mean, what we would encourage you to do is, if you have multiple dogs, if there's no instance you can think of where you would need to command them separately at the same time, the simplest way is obviously just to train all of your dogs to a consistent set of commands. That is the simplest level. Yeah, you kind of say any command and they all do it
the same thing.
at the same time. The next level of complexity is obviously adding the name in before, and then as Courtney was saying, making sure you're really making sure they understand the "I only do it if my name has been said." But then you need to make sure you're not undermining the use of their name. Their name is purely a look at me, give me your attention, wait for the command.
And another thing I wanted to throw in too quickly before I lose it.
Yep.
So if you have both dogs sitting there, they're both sitting, I tell Jimmy to drop. If Buddy stays in that sit and he doesn't, I'm going to reward him for that.
Yes.
Because he's actually done the right thing. I've given Jimmy a command and he hasn't followed it. So I'm going to go, good work.
Exactly. And this goes exactly to what you were talking about. Was it last week, the week before? Often we need to reward our dogs for doing nothing.
Yes, exactly.
If they're sitting being quiet, reward them. If that's what they're meant to be doing at that time, communicate it by giving them a reward for that.
For sure.
So they understand they don't just get rewards for working, they get rewards for behaving as they should be behaving
at the time. Yep. And making good decisions ultimately.
Exactly. Okay, so any questions on that, just put them up in the comments and we'll answer them later on.
Yes.
The next topic we want to talk about just briefly is snakes. So obviously living where we are, there's lots of big toothy things, and they
no ropes.
Yeah, and exactly, and lots of danger noodles, and there's lots of instances and very expensive instances where dogs have been bitten by snakes. Now, as some of you know already, I'm actually researching canine snake avoidance at the moment at the University of Queensland, part of my postgraduate studies. And one of the most interesting things I came across recently, which I wanted to share with everybody, is that contrary to popular belief, it's actually... Let me start again. We often think that it's safer to let our dogs rummage around in the bush in colder weather because we feel that snakes are going to be less likely to attack our dogs because they're colder, they may be sort of semi-hibernating in different parts of the country, wherever you are.
Moving slow.
Exactly. That's completely wrong. Snakes obviously are not lying in wait, waiting to attack us or our dogs. So conversely, apparently, according to the papers I was reading, and it makes a lot of sense, that actually there's a greater chance of your dog being bitten, or you being bitten, if you're going through the bush, in cold weather than in warm. Because in cold weather, they're more sluggish, they can't escape
Get away.
as well. Now, there's also less chance of them actually getting you, and less chance of them envenomating because they're slower and more sluggish. But generally speaking, when the body temperature, when the temperatures are up around the 30s, the body temperatures are up and high, there's statistically a much less lower chance of them actually having an incident, because they're much more likely and much more able to bugger off.
And that does make sense.
So I wanted to bring it up because I found it really interesting, and it goes against kind of popular belief and opinion. So at this time of year, what I'm getting at is be very, very careful. If you live in a bush setting, make sure that you're keeping your dog, reasonably close to you. You're really watching them. Most of the dangerous snakes here on the Sunshine Coast as well, they will give a warning before they hit. They'll give a back-off warning. They'll come up. They'll warn. If you can build in a very solid recall from your dog. And it's hard, because...
That's a common theme, guys. See how we keep mentioning that?
Exactly. Common recall, and this is why I'm researching it, because it's hard, often to recall your dog from that situation, so I'm trying to work out the best way of teaching that. But if the snake is up and rearing, you've got a window of opportunity before they actually, will strike.
Snakes don't want to bite.
The average distance as well for an Eastern Brown is about 0.35 of a metre as well.
Okay, not far.
So it's not actually that far. If you can get your dog a bit away, that dog is not going to come at, it's not hunting your dog. If you can get your dog back, ideally back to you, but back a bit, that gives the snake the chance to disappear.
Yes.
So try maybe keeping them on the long line so you can reel them back, anything like that. The costs of snake bite, you're talking thousands and thousands of dollars.
If not the life of the dog.
If not the life of the dog. If they can save it, you're often out of pocket, $10,000.
Large amounts, yes.
Large amounts of money. So please kind of bear that in mind when you're out and about. And also, once we've completed the research and we've come up with what we think is a proper workable method.
Well, in the best way, I guess, is what we're looking for.
Yeah, then we'll actually be starting to run some snake avoidance classes here for people. Maybe live in more rural or peri-urban settings.
Yep.
Okay. The next thing we want to talk about briefly is cold weather.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so cold weather, guys. All of our dogs are gonna need different things throughout the winter. So dogs that have double coats and things like that, so your Rotties and your cattle dogs or your Labradors or your Border Collies, those dogs are probably not going to feel the cold as much. That being said, the advice I always give to people when they're asking me, like, do dogs need coats? Do dogs need blankets? Do they need this? Do they need that? If your dog looks cold, help them out. Like, if they're fine, like one of my dogs, so Jimmy, he really likes the cold, and he won't if I put a blanket on him, he'll just get up and take it off. He doesn't like it. Yeah. But if you have a dog that's sitting there and they're shivering and you notice they're trying to tuck in as close as they can to you, it might be worth considering whether they need something else to just make them a little bit more cozy. If your dogs are sleeping outside, 100% a lot more important. Make sure that they have something with preferably closed off walls. So even if it's a wire crate that you put a blanket over. But yeah, they need to have that little bit of shelter from the wind just to be able to keep themselves warm. Like James said, a den kind of area. And put blankets in there so that they can kind of nuzzle themselves into them if you want. If you have a dog that you know if you tuck them in, they're going to stay under the blanket all night, go ahead and do that. But just use your common sense a little bit. Don't be too tough or assume that your dog is too tough or think that it's ridiculous to try to keep your dog warm. No. Especially the older guys.
Just give them the option. Just give them the option.
100%.
If you're out at work all day, if your dog's outside, just create a little denning area for them. I mean, obviously in summer, you give them a nice bed that's raised off of the ground to get the airflow through to help keep them cool. And some shade and so on. This time of year, just make sure you've given them, a little kind of enclosed, protected area from the wind. As simple as Courtney said, even just, some chairs, some blankets over, whatever. Just an area they can kind of get under, snuggle into some blankets a bit, and keep themselves warm if they need to.
And if you have a dog who you can't put beds in with or blankets in with, because I know that there's going to be some people saying,
destroy them.
Yes. Straw. Go to the pet store and get a big bale of straw or hay. It's cheap. They can't really shred it more than it is. It might be a little bit messy, you know, so
Yep.
stick it in a specific area. But I know a lot of people that use that as bedding. It's quite warm, actually.
Yes.
So that's a great option, and it's fairly cheap.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So again, yeah, any questions on that, just let us know. Okay, so masterclass section this week. What I wanted to talk about was that whole kind of quote, that philosophy that I think encapsulates, you know, what we're really about here at Padfoot.
Yeah, working
which
with
is
the dog.
yeah, which is the dog dictates what motivates the dog. I like this quote so much, so we've actually, you know, just got it put on some t-shirts. You can get these t-shirts from the Padfoot website. Yeah, just training t-shirts. Yeah, if you'd like, you know, to do so. But it really encapsulates, you know, what we believe in here.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to play the dog, you know, as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the old school methods, you know, were very, very much around this is the way we train, this is the way we will reward you, this is the way we expect you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very regimented. Now, as you know, here at Padfoot, you know, we're all about letting dogs be dogs as much as possible, you know, teaching them the jobs, but we want to teach them to want to do the job. We want it to make it fun and rewarding and enriching for them.
And that's how you really get an obedient dog.
Exactly, rather than for them feeling compelled that they have to do it. So what this means in practice is you've got to work shit out with your dog. You've got to understand, you know, your dog. You know, here we use a lot of food treats, and that may work for 70% of dogs.
Mm-hmm.
There's 30% of dogs that won't for. Now, there's a lot of theories out there about, you know, I mean, yes, you can say the dog that won't work for food, you know, make them more, they're not hungry enough, basically. And of course, you can increase the value of a food treat,
Mm-hmm.
you know, by increasing its scarcity and therefore its value, you know, to them, as we've covered off in previous weeks. You know, but there's other dogs that, even if they're hungry and motivated by food, they're still not that motivated. It's not the thing that they love. They may love play more, ball
Yes.
play,
Yep.
you know, other forms of enrichment are just their thing. You
Yeah,
know?
food might be here, but
Something else
is right
yeah,
up
is
here.
above. You know, so if you've got dogs that have come from working stock, like my guys,
Mm-hmm.
for example, look, they love their food. Don't get me wrong. They Scout more than Banjo. What Banjo though is most motivated in is working. Yeah, he is a working stock, you know, Cocker Spaniel. You know, he just wants to get out there, and his prey drive and things like that are off the charts.
Yeah,
you know?
working is self-rewarding.
When he was a puppy, we had a tennis ball that we just basically covered in rabbit fur. You know, because for him, you know, like tennis
That
ball was
was-
great. A tennis ball covered in rabbit fur
Was the best thing on
was
the planet.
just the dog's nuts.
Yeah.
You know, he would, you know, he would do anything for that. And so, in terms of me being able to train him, it was a lot easier if I had the rabbit ball. That dog
A rabbit
would
ball.
do anything, absolutely anything
Yeah.
that I wanted him to do, because I was holding the thing that was just
The almighty
the
rabbit ball.
the almighty rabbit ball. Yeah, he, you know, it was the highest value
Yeah.
thing to him because it gave him the greatest kind of, you know, release of, you know, endorphins and, you know, and all that sort of stuff, and
Yes.
you know, and pleasures. So this is what you've got to understand. You've got to learn your dog and kind of go, right, okay, this dog, you know, okay, food, great. What sort of food? What is it motivated by?
100%.
You know, because again, it's all different things. So yeah, one dog would like, you know, just a bit of jerky. Another dog, you know, may like a bit of chicken, a bit of sausage. You know, other dogs may go and still go in for their kibble.
And they might be
Whatever.
happy with one thing at home, but then you
Exactly.
come to the field, we find a lot
Yeah.
of people, their treats aren't up to scratch.
Exactly, because it's a more distracting environment. So you need, you know, and so we tell people when they come to training class, don't feed your dogs before they come. Make sure
No.
they're hungry and bring high value treats, because we've got to counteract the effects of all of this fun and excitement. Us, basically,
Yep.
we're fun and exciting.
Yeah, the environmental excitement needs to be here and the food needs to be at least just above.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, so this really does encapsulate, you know, the way we approach training here at Padfoot. You know, you've got to understand the dog. You've got to, you know, play the man, not the ball. You know, yeah, you've got to really understand what motivates your dog, and at different levels, and be able to escalate up through those gears.
Yeah.
You know, if you need to.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
because ultimately, the easiest way to teach the dog to do what, you know, the behaviour, is for them to have a reward at the end of it, and the enthusiasm with which they will do the behaviour entirely depends on the value of the reward,
Yes.
and it could be anything. I think you said last week about Pat Stewart. who's one of
Yes,
it's a
yeah,
very,
he's
very
an environmental.
yeah, he's a very good trainer. He uses environmental things. If he notices a bitch on heat has gone and urinated
Or
somewhere,
there's a particular smell.
yeah, he will use that. So he will be training his dog, knowing full well that all his dog really wants to do at that time is going over and sniff that smell. And when the dog has done the behaviour he's looking for, he will release it to go and sniff that smell.
Yeah.
Because at that moment, at that time, that dog wants that more than it wants its ball.
More than anything else.
There's also a very interesting exercise he does as well. I don't know if you've seen this on some of his videos. You can look them up, Pat Stewart videos. But basically what he'll do is he'll be playing tug with his dog. And he'll also have a handful of food. And he'll be holding it there. And at the time, the dog will not take that food whatsoever.
He's so stuck on
Because he's so stuck in the game, playing the tug game and so on. Best food in the world right there. Pate,
nice,
whatever,
Nice piece of steak.
Yeah, lovely. No, won't do it. He will then click and the dog will instantly disengage from the tug toy and take the food.
And that's a perfect example of the dog knowing exactly what he's communicating.
Yeah, because the marker has been, he's used classical conditioning, all through the dog's life, that basically click food, click food, click food, click food. That dog now knows, if you click, I have to take the food, I have to disengage with what I'm doing,
Yes.
to do that behaviour.
And that's what we're doing
It's
with our
instinctive.
yes or anything.
Yeah.
Whether you use the clicker, whether you use yes, whether you use whatever word you would like, that's the release
Exactly.
cue we're talking about.
And when we get to that point, that's instinctual. The dog isn't even thinking. It doesn't even, if you ask the dog, why did you do that? The dog wouldn't have a clue.
Just did it.
It just did it because it's just
The way the brain
ingrained,
works.
in it.
All those fun neural pathways.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, just wanted to talk a little bit about that. And we're getting the t-shirts printed up at the moment, and I'm going to be walking around wearing them all the time. Because I think it's great.
It's James's life motto.
It is.
His
It
dogs
is.
dictate everything.
It is. I'm thinking about getting it tattooed somewhere. I'm just trying to work out where it'll fit. But anyway, moving swiftly along to Buddy's trick of the week.
Yes.
So this week we're going to be talking about touch. Now this as a trick, look, it's a trick, it's a behaviour, but it's probably one of the most valuable ones because, and you'll see in a minute once Courtney's kind of talked you through it, that it's a really, really good way, and if you can get this instinctual, if you say the command, the dog does it without even knowing
Thinking
why they've
about
done it. It's great if they're in a stressful situation, if their emotional state is above threshold, if they're too overexcited, if you need to calm them down, if you need to get them to redirect onto you or anything like that. This is a great tool for this one.
And the reason being, it's an easy win for your dog. So when your dog's really stressed out, having a hard time, you give them an easy win, it really can help bring them back down to earth a little bit.
And there's various, and Courtney will display as well, there's various degrees. There's a basic touch, or you can do some kind of more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So
make it
a bit more
fun, a bit more acrobatic.
Yeah, like a little circus trick.
Yeah. So I'm going to step out of the way so you can see Courtney and Bud.
Awesome. So this one, guys, we are going to be using that marker word. So whether you're using your clicker, whether you're using yes, free, break, I'm going to be using yes so I don't confuse myself, but that's what it means when I say yes. You can interchange that with whatever word or clicker you need. To start with, I have a few little pieces of food here. I don't know if you can see without me dropping them. All I'm going to do is I'm going to hold them in a fist like this, right? I'm going to present my fist down to Buddy. I'm going to say the word touch. And the second that his nose comes and touches my hand to inspect what little food treat is inside of it, I'm going to mark that and open my hand and give him those treats. So the idea being we really want to get it quick and mark that second that they just touch you. We don't want any teeth touching, we don't want mouth opening, we don't want mouthing behaviors going on. We want to communicate really clearly that all they have to do is touch your hand with their nose. Alright, so I'll back up a little bit and I'll show you it, Buddy. Bye. Can you see me now? Awesome, so I've got the food in my hands. I'm going to present it down, give him the command, and then mark him for it. Touch. Yes! Awesome, so it's very subtle. Just that split second that he touches my hand, he gets rewarded for. Then, once you've done that a few times, once you've done that a few times, you're going to have a treat in your hand, and you're also going to have a treat here ready to give separately. So they start to understand that the food isn't going to come from your fist every single time, but they are still going to be rewarded. So I would do maybe 4 or 5 reps of having the food in your hand and just releasing it like that before you move to this. Touch. Yes. Awesome. So now he still gets the treat, but it's not coming from this fist. Touch. Yes. Touch. Yes. Awesome. So now he knows this, by the way, guys. I'm moving through this way quicker than you will. Now I have no treat in my hand. All I'm going to do is present him that fist. So it's a little bit of a physical cue, but I'm also going to give him the verbal cue of touch. Touch. Yes. Touch. Yes. Then you can start moving it around a little bit so that they understand that it's not just going to be here. It might be here. Touch. Yes. Then you can start making a little bit fun, like James was saying, and you're going to start putting up, so touch, touch, yes. And they've got to work a little bit more for it, right? So little old man Buds is a bit cold this morning. Touch, yes. Wait for you. Touch, yes. Awesome. So nice and simple, but if you build that up really fun, guys, especially for the younger dogs who are much more enthusiastic at 8 o'clock in the morning than Buddy is, you know, it's a really nice, easy way to focus them back in, give them some positive reinforcement, and just ground them a little bit.
Exactly, and particularly for those of you who've got young puppies at the moment, but this is a great one to start working them on. I mean, as we say to all people with young puppies, sort of pre-foundation level puppies, we'll start working on, like, come sit, look at me. So just getting their focus. You know, start teaching them to focus when you are, and give you eye contact, when you ask them to.
And that good things happen when they do it.
And just keep on doing that, making sure you're shoving treats into them all the time, lots of praise, lots of love, building that. But this as well, rather than getting into, like, everybody always concentrates on the sitting and and all that kind of stuff. Which is all lovely. But actually, in terms of value, getting their attention and teaching them a game.
Yeah, it is more of a game.
That can distract them from kind of puppy overexcitedness, or you can use it. That you can do it quickly, you can do it slowly. You can set the pace.
Yeah, if you need to get them going, get them a little bit excited.
Exactly.
If you need to slow them down,
you can use it for that as well. So it's a great one, to keep on working.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. We've gone on for about half an hour again this week. I don't know. We were talking about trying to keep it a bit shorter, but
I know we keep trying.
We just kind of get in front of the camera and just start crapping on. It's great. Well, I do anyway. I think everything Courtney says is pretty useful. I tend to ramble.
Thank you. That's one of the nicest thing you've ever said to me, James.
Oh, there you go. Happy birthday. So, look, any questions on any of that or anything else, obviously just ask us on the Ed Zone.
Melissa just asked where we can get clickers.
So where can you buy clickers? No. So, all right, so, well, yes and no. So, yes, you can get clickers just at most pet shops or eBay or Amazon.
Too.
You can also get integrated, like I think they're Clicks one, CLIX brand.
Yep.
That are integrated whistles and clickers.
Okay.
Or you can get actual professional proper dog whistles, which are Acme, ACME dog whistles.
You get clicker apps on your phone too.
Yeah, you can get that too. If you're looking for the Acme kind of working dog whistles that I use, for example, I've got one right here on my keys. I carry them with me everywhere. Generally, because people often ask what pitch they should get, because there's different types, I would generally recommend, if you've got a gun dog based breed, so a spaniel, a lab, any kind of oodle, generally, something like that, then the 210.5.
Okay.
If you've got a herding type breed, so a shepherd, a kelpie or anything like that, then the 211.5 just seems to work better. They're slightly different pitches. I've got no idea why they respond better to those pitches, but that's just my experience.
And answer the question of if they're the same or not.
Yeah.
No. A whistle is used as a command.
Yes.
And then we use a clicker as a marker. I mean, technically, you could condition them opposite ways, but in general speak, you replace the whistle with calling your dog and saying come.
Yes.
Becomes the whistle. So it's just another command. It's a sound that's asking for something.
Exactly.
And then the clicker is a sound that means you've done it, here's your treat.
Exactly.
So they are different.
Yeah, exactly right. So any more questions, just ask them. We will answer later. We'll cover them next week. On the topic of next week, it's exciting news that we've now got the go-ahead to recommence our group training classes of next weekend down here at the Oval. So look, Training club will be running at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, or 6:30 p.m. on a Monday evening.
Yep.
Down here at the Oval. You can either subscribe on our website, pay $20 a week by kind of automatic, just taking off your credit card. That entitles you to go to all 3 of those sessions for the one price. Or you can just rock up at the time, give Courtney $20,
Yep.
and just come and work in that. That is open to people who are currently enrolled or have completed our foundation course.
Yes.
If you have done neither of those things, then we need to do an assessment of your dog.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, it's just so we know your dog, we know they're not a maniac that's going to eat all the other dogs.
And we know where they're at.
And ourselves, So if you want to do that assessment, you can then just book a private lesson with Courtney, again, via the website.
Yes.
Courtney can do the assessment and then you're into the training club. Nice and easy.
Easy as that.
Okay, so you've got easy options. The training club is a bit less structured than the actual foundation and intermediate and so on classes.
Yep.
There is a program that Courtney works through, for that, but it's intended to be a bit more fun. It gives you the opportunity to go out and keep training your dog on the behaviours that they need at the time,
Yes.
in the company of other kind of friendly dogs.
Yeah, and people too who are enjoying it.
And the professional trainer, make some friends. It's also really, really great for those dogs that maybe need a bit more socialisation, a bit more confidence building and so on. It's a great opportunity.
I start every
for them.
session doing some socialisation and focus exercises,
exactly.
and then we get into some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So
So it's a great opportunity for that. So if that's of interest, you can either just rock up, like I said, with $20, or you can subscribe on the website and then just show up to all 3 for $20.
Yes. Yep.
Nice and hopefully that's valuable.
Very good.
In terms of our group classes, we're going to have to adjust the way they're run a little bit, just to meet social distancing and legal requirements.
COVID.
Yep. So this weekend I will be, for those of you who have already signed up, for this next group, or a continuation of the group that we had to stop.
They got cut off.
Yeah, they got cut off previously. I'll be putting some information out on the Ed Zone and by email this weekend. Slightly changed format, as I said, so hopefully I'll be able to make myself make sense, to you. But basically, yes. So for those things, next Sunday we'll be back 8, 9, 10, 11 a.m.
Yep.
and Wednesday evening 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
For those of you who had started the course on the previous round that we stopped due to COVID, we're actually going to be running you guys from the beginning again. So rather than trying to pick up where we left off, look, too much time has passed. We don't know how much practice you've been able to do. So what we're going to be doing is just starting again this week, 6 weeks, bang. Okay? So I hope that's helpful. If you feel you don't need those 2 weeks, feel free to take a break.
Yeah.
Or come along.
Sleep in on those mornings.
Yeah. But any questions, just ask on the Ed Zone. Okay?
Perfect.
And also, if there's anybody else that wants to, I think we've got a couple of spaces left, particularly at 11 a.m. I think there's still a few spaces left. So if you want to sign up, jump on the website now, foundation training, bang, book in,
Yes.
and go from there.
Perfect.
A couple of other things just before we finish up. Sorry, lots to talk about this week.
Housekeeping.
Lots of housekeeping. We're going to be adding soon. So currently we've got the foundation and the intermediate groups. We're actually going to be running an advanced one as well. So we're going to be adding that on too. So a formalised and advanced level. We're also going to be kicking off a discrete, probably 4-step program in gun dog training. So it's professional gun dog training.
Stuff.
Now obviously not as useful here in Queensland because like people don't go duck hunting, or we don't use gun dogs in Queensland for the purposes for which they were bred. However, it's very enriching for them, so we're actually thinking about running, and this is what I used to do, is running a program which is aligned to the Kennel Club in the UK, kind of gun dog training curriculum and assessment. So if you've got dogs that have been through, say, the foundation, and you want them to actually do things more like retrieving, blind retrieves, directional work, all of that sort of fun stuff.
Yep, and and it's kind of like with the herding dogs. I recommend a lot of them to a sheep herding class.
Yeah.
We're not actually going out there
We
herding
just haven't
sheep.
got any sheep.
No, but I mean, for all these spaniels and poodles and retrievers and your GSPs, all those dogs,
Yeah.
this is it's a great outlet for them to kind of be able to actually
Exactly.
use some of those behaviours that they were really bred over hundreds of years for.
Exactly. You know, so it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while because I love doing it, you know, and I love teaching the working dogs in that way. It's great for dogs of that breed, you know. So we've got a few spaniels that have been through us previously. Bodie, I'm looking at you.
And
know,
the Tollers.
and the
Sharon.
Tollers, and Sharon, you know, and any other dogs that are major derivatives of gun dog breeds, you know. Excuse me. If you think they would enjoy this, then keep an eye on the website, keep an eye on the Facebook group, and we'll be getting that promoted, you know, pretty soon, so people can sign up for that.
Very exciting.
I'm very excited about that one.
It'll be fun.
It'll be awesome. And I'm hoping as well, as part of that, because I've got a training ground I use out in the bush to train my detection dogs, I'm hoping they might let me use that, you know, to take people out there to really get them in amongst the bush and really doing some quite difficult retrieves. Yeah, in thick undergrowth, and that, yeah, it'll be if they let me do it, that'll be awesome. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it this week.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. Brooke, hi. Nice to see you too.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for showing up and listening. And look, we're really looking forward to seeing everybody, seeing your dogs. Yeah, you're probably by now maniac dogs. Yeah, next week. You know, don't worry. We understand nobody's been able to go out to the barber or the hairdresser or whatever, so we understand that everybody's going to be looking very, very different.
Rough, maybe.
Yeah, a little rough around the edges, a little bit different to what they looked like, you know, before they when we last saw them. You know.
Before the pandemic.
Yeah, before the pandemic.
Awesome.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, we'll say goodbye.
All right. So have a great week, everyone. Really looking forward to seeing you all next week. Padfoot Live will still be going on every week though, because we love doing it. As you can tell, I just can't stop talking. It must be time
James
for my
loves to
breakfast.
talk.
I do. Apparently, I love to talk. Who would have known? Anyway.
Melissa.
Yeah. Maybe I don't get the chance at home. All right. Take care, guys.
See ya.
See you.